What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA Show. My name is Huzaifa, and we are back with the professional fighter Justin Guitar Hero James. And we've got a number of things that we want to talk about today that are unfolding in the world of mixed martial arts. Now, obviously, we don't have a major, huge UFC card coming up this weekend. We do have some cool stuff to talk about that's upcoming for December, which is pretty exciting. I know Petr Yan was just announced versus Davison Figueiredo, or that fight's happening. That's a very interesting fight that maybe we'll touch on. But the story that is grabbing headlines not only across the country or across Ireland, but across the planet is that the Conor McGregor civil case for we're not going to say the word because I know YouTube doesn't like that word, but for this alleged assault, I think we can't say he's criminally convicted, so he's like quote unquote guilty, but I think the correct terminology is he's been found civilly liable for this assault against this woman Nikita. I can't remember her. I'm blanking on her last name right now. But it's been pretty insane. Like, as I mentioned, everybody's been talking about it. Even folks in Ireland are saying, well, there's a general election right now, and this is getting more press than even the general election, which is pretty incredible. And yeah, I don't know. There's just been a lot of blowback. Apparently, Conor McGregor is already pretty disliked in Ireland, is what I've heard from PT Carroll, somebody who does a lot of content with Ariel Helwani. But I guess this is making it potentially worse. What's up, Celine? Great to see you. Justin, before we get into some of the details, and I got a video that I want to show to everybody from the solicitor in Ireland, which is basically the equivalent to a district attorney here, who I don't think he prosecuted the case, but he's an expert in criminal or civil and criminal prosecution, I imagine. Before I show that video, Justin, like, I just want to give it to you as a professional fighter. Like, what's your first reaction to this news and what's going on as a fellow fighter?
This is the first I've heard of it, man. So I'm really looking forward for you to elaborate a little bit.
Okay.
Tell me what's going on, what happened between him and this girl, and what's the lawsuit consisting of.
Sure. So there was an allegation. I mean, I think this is now almost like a 6-year-old case. This case gets insane. So as we know, Conor McGregor has been in the news throughout his career for a lot of negative things, punching people, assaulting people. And then we have these assaults against women. He also pushed somebody off his boat. She tried to pursue legal action against him. I believe her car, that victim, her car was firebombed. I mean, crazy stuff is happening. Now, with this case, apparently what happened is this woman, Nikita, she has alleged, and the jury agreed with her, that one night Conor and some of his friends called her up to hang out late at night after they'd both been partying respectively, separately in Ireland, in Dublin. And they met up at a hotel room and some things went down. Conor McGregor alleges or claims, I think continues to claim, that everything was consensual, whereas Nikita claimed that, no, she wanted to go and hang out and party. But in fact, when Conor McGregor started pursuing a sexual encounter, she said she didn't want to for a number of reasons. One of them being that she knew Dee Devlin, Conor McGregor's fiance and partner, and she didn't want to do that. And one of the pieces of evidence was that she was actually, she was on her period and she had something in place at the time, and that was pushed inside apparently. So that's one of the really graphic, like, horrifying details, and that was confirmed by medical staff. So anyways, this is what happened. He's basically saying it was consensual and has maintained that the entire time. She is claiming, and once again the jury did agree with her, and I don't think it's correct for me to say guilty because, again, it's a civil case, and I'll explain the nuances between that and a criminal case as well. But anyways, yeah, so now he's been found to be civilly liable for this, and yeah, I don't know. So that's kind of where it's at. And she's been awarded around $250,000 for. So Conor McGregor will not face any jail time because, again, a civil case, not a criminal case, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's a lot to digest, right away, man. In these situations with professional athletes, remember Kobe Bryant, had some allegations back then. I know a lot of high level athletes. So, I'm not saying he's innocent, I'm not saying he's guilty, but there's always two sides to every story, man. And until I know more about the case, and again, I don't like to throw fingers around until I know more, because again, I mean, man, that's I mean, there's a lot to untangle there, especially with all the information that, like you're just dumping right now. And it's like, holy shit, that's fucking intense. And I mean,
Yeah.
man, I don't even know how to digest it, to be honest.
So and you know what's crazy too, which I heard today as well. And I have to confirm this. I think I heard this on Luke Thomas's channel, and he's usually obviously super, super reliable and amazing journalist. So I tend to believe whatever he says on this front, because I think he'd be quite careful. But he said that apparently Nikita, the woman in this case, the victim, apparently her partner, her significant other throughout this whole 6-year ordeal, their house was broken into and he was attacked and stabbed, and then they had to be relocated. I mean, this is insane. I think when we maybe 5 or 10 years down the line, when we look back at all the things that have happened, it's pure insanity. And I know there have been allegations that Conor McGregor is entangled with organized crime in Ireland. I have no idea whether that's true or false, but it does seem to be that almost like criminal tactics are being used to scare witnesses or intimidate witnesses. As I mentioned, that we have the other incident of the car bombing for the other woman who was pushed off his boat, and then she eventually just dropped all the charges and didn't pursue further legal action. It sounds like maybe potentially this woman and her partner were being intimidated. I mean, it's like out of a movie. It's insane. I guess let's put it like this. This is I guess what I'm curious to know from your perspective, assuming these things are true. And again, with a civil case, it's the same in the US, right? With a civil case versus a criminal case, the burden of evidence is lower. So for example, we have to prove both in Ireland and in the US beyond a reasonable doubt. So if there is one singular reasonable doubt that you can raise in the jury's mind that, hey, maybe this didn't happen, boom, acquitted, right? Now with a civil case, it's the preponderance of the evidence, meaning what's more likely? Was it more likely that this happened or that this did not happen? And so the jury found, after looking at the totality of evidence, that it's more likely that this happened than it did not, which is still a pretty strong statement. So Justin, as a fellow fighter, I mean, I just don't know what is your feeling, as this guy is kind of like the emblem of the sport, of your chosen sport. And do you have any feelings, assuming this is correct, this is a correct verdict, and he did do this? Like, what do you think the UFC should do, or do you not have an opinion on that?
Man, it's tough to say what the UFC should do because this is their golden child, man. Conor McGregor is the sport of MMA. He hasn't been active in 5 years or however long it's been, and look at us, we're still talking about him. Journalists are still talking about him.
Yeah.
Given his past and given him as a person, like I'm sure if this did happen, I'm sure it was drug induced, which is obviously is not
It
not an
was.
excuse. Yeah, I'm sure it was drug induced. He can always use that against, but again, you still can't. There's no excuse for that, for putting your hands on a woman, especially when she says not to, man. And that sucks. It just kind of goes to show, Conor McGregor. If you watched his documentary on Netflix, the rise of Conor McGregor. It's what's such an incredible documentary, living off welfare all the way to be where he's at right now, arguably the most popular athlete in the world right now. No, it doesn't matter if you're an MMA fan or not. You know who Conor
Right.
McGregor is.
Everybody. Yeah.
Everybody knows who he is. And with that saying, now you go from being in the slums to the most popular athlete in the world. I mean, I'm sure that carries a lot of weight, and you have a lot of temptation. Drug temptation mostly. And man, like, especially with him being coked out. I've seen videos of him coked out, and living in Las Vegas, I have a pretty good grasp and tell him when someone's coked out. I just saw a video of Chuck Liddell all coked out at 309. Did you see that video? Did I send it to you?
I
Oh
don't
my
think
God,
so.
it's so fucking funny. He's sitting in
Oh
the crowd.
God.
He's like,
Oh God.
yeah,
That's bad.
and then he's like looking really fast. Like, it was awesome. It was
Oh
so
no.
fucking funny. But regardless to that,
Mm.
come all this greatness comes great responsibility as well, man. And unfortunately, I think he's just overwhelmed in the fame. He's overwhelmed in the money, and he knows that he can be really put in any situation. He almost feels like Superman or invincible, and he's going to get out of it. And unfortunately, it's all going to catch up to him, whether it's this case or another case down the road. I mean, it's always something. It's always something, man. And especially, I don't think he's going to be getting off drugs anytime soon. So, I mean, this might just be, the beginning of the end of Conor McGregor.
It might be. You know what Habib said years ago, and I'm going to turn it over to this Solicitor General video in a second, just so you guys can hear from the horse's mouth, essentially, what his thoughts are. I queued it up for a particular clip where he's talking about what this woman went through, and he of course he also believes Nikita. I think most people that I've listened to this morning do believe the testimony of the victim, and that's always the question, right? It's a he said she said thing, and that can complicate the matter. But I think there was just so much physical evidence, especially from the medical staff that looked at Nikita after the incident. I think the evidence was just overwhelming in her favor, and that's how the verdict went. But Khabib said years ago, when you get money and fame, it doesn't change you. Money and fame reveals the true you. The true you comes out when you have all these things and people can stop saying no to you, and you have all this power, you have all this influence. Then the real you comes out. And Khabib just gives these nuggets of wisdom. And I know, him and Conor obviously never really gotten along, or will never really ever get along, let's say. But he was definitely referring to Conor when he said that. And, that's, I think, where I'm left wondering, man, is he, I don't know. It's just this stuff, this negativity, this anger, this violence just inside of him, or is something getting the better of him? Is it something having to do with drugs? What is it? But man, it's just so disappointing, because this is my favorite sport. I feel personally attached to the sport. You're a professional in the sport, so obviously I'm sure you feel even closer to the sport. And it just feels quite sad that the guy at the very top that transcends the sport, that is known by pop culture and everybody across the planet, is now doing these types of things. I don't know if we could say doing them, or we still have to say allegedly, now that the civil traces have, what's the correct way to say it. But anyways, the fact that this seems to have happened, again, been found by a preponderance of the evidence that this has happened. So let's say this seems to very likely have happened after the civil trial. Man, it's just, I don't know. It's just quite a black eye, I feel like, for the sport. But the sport will move on. It is what it is. Now I want to play this clip for you, and we can discuss this a little bit further. Guys, if you have any comments, please put them in the live chat, and we will do our best. Again, we are not experts on this case. I have been following along to some extent, but not in close detail. But when the verdict came out, I felt like we had to talk about it. So let's listen to the attorney solicitor from Ireland. Here we go.
It was a woman's photograph.
And he's talking about now somebody commenting on his YouTube channel about Nikita, about the victim, and doing so in a disparaging way. And he's coming to her defense. So listen to what he says here. I think this is interesting.
Anyway, on a TikTok account, I presume I give her the benefit of the doubt and say she is a lady. But she said that Nikita was well up for it. And, she got what she deserved, or something of that nature. And quite frankly, I think that was an absolutely appalling comment. Nikita Han may have been well up for a party. She may well have been well up for drinking alcohol. She may even have been well up for taking cocaine. But she was not well up for assault, or being strangled, or being raped, or anything of that nature. Now, the jury has found that she was raped by Conor McGregor, and I don't know the specifics of the details, but what I am saying is there's a world of difference between what a woman, or indeed a man, consents to up to a certain point in time and then says no. So Nikita Hand could have consented to a lot of stuff, but she didn't consent to rape, and she didn't consent to the injuries that she suffered, and the medical evidence is fairly strong and fairly substantial in corroborating her injuries. We've heard about the paramedics giving evidence. We've heard evidence from her GP. We've heard evidence from the psychologist or psychiatrist who said that she suffered from an acute case of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So that's the first thing, the first comment that I would make. She was well up for a lot of things, but she wasn't well up for rape. The second thing I'd say is that people were mixing up or confusing or conflating two issues. One, the morals of the situation, and two, the legalities. In other words, people were casting stones at Nikita Hand, and they were saying she was a liar. They were all liars, a plague in all their houses. Or she engaged in morally questionable activity, morally dubious activity. She cheated on her boyfriend. She had a child at home. She had a boyfriend and a new house, etc., etc. And what she did was morally reprehensible. That may be the case. That's for other people to judge. But that has nothing to do with the law. The law has to do with whether she was raped or assaulted in this particular instance or not. And the decision she made before that, the morally dubious, morally questionable decision she made, that's not something that the jury needed really to be concerned about. It's not something that the court needed to be concerned about. And quite frankly, it's not something that the general public needs to be concerned about, because he or she without the first stone, you know, the saying, let him without sin cast the first stone. But the bottom line is, I'm saying that people were making a mistake where they were conflating issues of morality and law. On the one hand, what she did morally was, you know, questionable or dubious or plain dumb. But on the other hand, from a legal perspective, the question is, and the jury had to address the question, was she assaulted by Conor McGregor or James Lawrence or both of them? And that's what the jury have done. So,
okay, so that is the statement from, again, the equivalent in the US of a district attorney, the solicitor in Ireland. So I thought that was quite interesting. I also want to play the statement from Nikita Han. I mean, you listen to her after the verdict and she is crying. It sounds like tears of relief. And obviously, I know this has probably been an incredibly difficult time period for the last 6 years. I know a lot of people probably not believing her. I can't even imagine what she's been through. And again, if that is true, what happened where somebody broke in and attacked her or her significant other with a knife, that's got to be insane. I'm sure there was tremendous amounts of pressure for her to crack and to give up and to stop, and she fought through. So let me play this very heartfelt statement. And I got to say, I want to get your opinion, Justin, but to me, I believe her. She seems just not like, it just seems legitimate to me. I believe her, and I believe the emotions are raw and true. So here, let's take a listen.
All the women and men out there who have supported me throughout this trial, for every person who reached out to me, a card, a letter, email, everything, it hasn't gone unnoticed. Thank you. I really appreciate it so much. I want to thank my partner, Gary, who has been so supportive for the last 4 years and has held my hand throughout this trial every day and every other day. I want to thank my mom and all my family and friends. Lastly, I want to thank my daughter, Freya, who I'm most grateful for. She has given me so much strength and courage over the last 6 years throughout this nightmare to keep on pushing forward for justice. I want to show Freya and every other girl and boy that you can stand up for yourself if something happens to you, no matter who the person is, and justice will be served. To all the victims of sexual assault, I hope my story is a reminder that no matter how afraid you might be, speak up, you have a voice, and keep on fighting for justice. I know this has impacted not only my life, my daughters, my family and friends tremendously. And it's something that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. But now that justice has been served, I can now try and move on and look forward to the future with my family and friends and daughter.
I mean, that's just crazy. That's heavy. But anyways, I guess that's where it ends. Now, what's going to be interesting is now that this verdict has come down, we know there's many other allegations against Conor. I mean, some of them have been caught on video. Who knows what else is out there that he's done, in terms of, there was a DJ in Italy that he punched in the face out of nowhere. I don't know what happened with that assault charge. Again, there's the woman who was thrown off his boat. There's this case. There's the gentleman that he punched in the bar. There's another instance where he smashed somebody's cell phone. I don't know if I mentioned that already, in Miami, so on and so forth. So, I mean, there's what does this mean? Now that we've got this verdict, are other people going to come forward and maybe now begin their own civil suits, or maybe even pursue criminal suits? You know, talk to the, is that going to now sway some of these solicitors, essentially equivalent to prosecutors, right? Are they going to now start taking action against Conor McGregor? Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if this now leads to some other investigations against him. But I guess we'll have to see. But this is crazy. Yeah. Has anything like this, to this magnitude, to this extent, ever happened that you can think of to any other athlete? And it's where, I mean, I know Mike Tyson had his allegations back in the day, but to this extent where it's so many things. And then even there's allegations that Conor McGregor is tied up in the underworld in Ireland and actually has strong ties to organized crime families and might even be involved in organized crime. I mean, have we ever seen something like this where we have such a big star that's almost being talked about as like a crime kingpin?
Not that I can think of, man. I mean, you've always had a lot of superstars, be accused of sexual allegations and stuff,
Right.
but not not to the extent of it could be an underground kingpin or something. I mean, fuck,
Crazy.
man, Conor's going to be in jail and somebody's going to make a movie about him, man. It's like the rise and the fall of Conor McGregor, man, because I mean, we got to watch his rise and it was awesome, but I don't agree with Habib when he says, "Oh yeah, it shows his true colors." I mean, I disagree with that because here's the thing. You go from having nothing to all of a sudden you have everything. And I'm sure that can be overwhelming. I'm not defending him by any means. I think it's terrible if he did this. It's fucking beyond terrible. There's not really much worse things you could do to somebody, not even murder somebody. Some people consider rape worse than murder because they have to live with it for the rest of their lives. So, there's not really much worse you could do to somebody. But I don't think it shows your true colors. I think that, when somebody is in a certain situation, especially a financial situation that's not very good, and you don't have very much, then all of a sudden here you can have everything. You can have the best cars, you can have all the women, you can have all the drugs, you can have all the yachts, you can have all the cars. I'm sure that's overwhelming. Again, this isn't me defending him by any means, but I don't agree with Habib and says, "Oh, it shows your true colors," because I tell you what. I'm not saying that I would go rape somebody by any means, but if I was just giving hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm sure my life would change drastically. And some might not think it for the good for the good either. So, man, I really hate the chick's really emotional. I mean, I tore her family up for the last 4 years, as she mentioned. I have a lot of sympathy towards this woman, and I hope everything goes according to plan and how it's supposed to go.
Man, oh man. All right. So I guess we will just see what happens. I know this has been probably one of the toughest days in this woman's life, although I'm sure she feels vindicated to some degree, but this is a very tricky situation. I think we'll have to wait to see. Now, obviously, this is a mixed martial arts podcast. We talk about mixed martial arts, the UFC primarily. And so not to take away from the gravity of the situation, but I am curious to know. Oh, I didn't even put up the title for this one. Sorry. I think we will be curious to know, or we will be following the story from the perspective of what is the UFC going to do, if anything. Now, in the past, the UFC, when their fighters and their contractors have had, issues, criminal issues, whatever. This is not exactly criminal, but along those lines, they usually don't take action against the fighters within the organization. They kind of let the legal system play out as it will. We somewhat remember this when Conor had legal issues again. That was another assault incident, right, where he tried to destroy the bus that Habib was in, threw a dolly through the bus. He faced some legal backlash there as well when that happened in New York prior to their fight. So, typically the UFC does not usually make it as part of their standard protocol to like penalize fighters when these types of things happen. So I don't know, but I will say that Luke Thomas did say today on his show that he feels pretty strongly that now with this case unfolding the way it did, we will probably never see Conor McGregor return to the octagon. Again, not to take away from the gravity of this case and this incident and all these things that happened, but I mean, Justin, where do you lie on that right now? What do you think? Do you think this is it, that we're just never going to see Conor McGregor come back to the octagon?
I mean, regardless if this happened or not, I didn't ever really expect to see him come back. Maybe this is the nail in the coffin, but again, Conor McGregor is the face of the sport. He is the most popular MMA fighter of all time, and I can't even imagine anybody, no matter who, not Hamzat, not obviously not Bilal, or anybody else, even Habib. Like this, Conor McGregor made Habib who he is, man. And people can disagree with that all they want, but I guarantee if Habib was fighting the championship against fucking Justin Gaethje, which he did, I mean, look at the pay-per-view buys. It speaks for itself. Regardless if you hate Conor McGregor, love Conor McGregor, he is the face of the UFC and he is the most popular athlete of all time. I can see Dana White. I mean, Dana White's had some really, really bad allegations on him too, and not just allegations, but facts. When he was slapping his wife around at that nightclub a couple of years ago, that was all on video. I mean, I think it's going to be one of those things. They're going to put him out of sight for a little while, and out of sight, out of mind, and hopefully reset in the next year or something. And I mean, I can't see the UFC just giving up their cash cow over something like this, unfortunately.
I guess we will see. And that's all we really got to say about that. Guys, if you have any questions or comments, make sure to put them in the comment section or throw them in the live chat if you're on right now. Yeah, that's pretty much what we have to say about that. Okay, let's move on to like fighting related news. So one of the things I want to talk about today is that Jon Jones is back in training. So he posted something on his personal social media of him immediately. I think this was like Wednesday or Tuesday. I'm not sure exactly what day, but he's back in the gym, lifting, training, right back in there. Dana White made the comment after the Jon Jones fight. I rewatched it again last night, by the way. I was showing one of my buddies. So I thought it was such a cool fight. But he said that usually Jon Jones will disappear for like a little bit and he won't hear from him. Then he'll pop back up and then they'll talk about what's next for Jon Jones in his career. But it seems like that's not what Jon Jones is doing. He's right back in the gym, training, right back at it. I think he showed some clips of him doing some weight training and whatnot. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. And then we also heard, or I also saw a story that Tom Aspinall, I think this was like 20 or 18 hours ago, Tom Aspinall said he's been talking to the UFC already, and all he's waiting for right now is just a date. He's waiting for a date to be matched up against Jon Jones. Justin, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think Jon Jones is actually going to fight Tommy Aspinall?
I mean, I think we're getting closer and closer. And, we said this before the fight with Stipe is, everyone keeps asking about Tom and he keeps putting it off. That's not going to happen, not going to happen. I think, again, he was just trying to stay focused for the Stipe matchup because as soon as the fight was over, he says, we're looking to give you the fight that you guys all want. And that's the fight that everyone's talking about. And I know he's speaking in code almost, but this is exactly how I thought it was going to play out. Like I said, we talked about it on the show. I think I had a video of it. He has Stipe in front of him. People keep asking about Tom Aspinall. It's like, dude, I'm not worried about Tom. Tom's not going to happen. I got to focus on Stipe. I got to get through this first task. He got through the first task really easily. Now he's open to the discussion, especially if he gets fuck you money.
Dude, it could be so cool. They're saying that this could be the biggest heavyweight fight of all time or one of them, but I think it would be the biggest. I can't think of a bigger one. It's funny, Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane, I feel like should have been way bigger than it was, but it wasn't really, I don't even think it did tremendously well in terms of pay-per-view buys, but because of all the drama and all the craziness, this will be one of the biggest. I kind of didn't really want to see it, to be honest. There's part of me that still doesn't want to see it just because it's annoying to me that people are making such a big deal when at the end of the day, you listen to so many fighters say over. Oh, by the way, I heard Kamaru Usman say this. Oh my God, I should have had the clip queued up. I forgot. Kamaru Usman, again, Pound for Pound podcast, becoming my favorite podcast ever on mixed martial arts. He said this exactly. Kamaru's so smart. He made multiple points. Well, I'm not saying he's smart because he was agreeing with me, but he made multiple points on that show that it was basically saying verbatim what I've been saying is like, look, there's always going to be somebody new. This will just never end. Even when he beats Tom, they're going to say somebody else, Jailton Almeida or some other random name. John's got to beat this guy. This guy's going to be the one to beat him. It will never end. With Khabib, it was Charles Oliveira. It will never stop. So it's like when you give into this, what are you giving into? You're giving into a nonsense, a made up machine of people just being like, nope, you got to fight that guy. And as soon as that challenge is done, nobody's like, wow, congratulations. They'll be like, oh, Tom was overhyped. Like, it's just, you just can't win. So in a way, I kind of want him to just walk away, if that's what he wants, just walk away and let the fans be upset and crazy because they don't even know they're being completely irrational anyways on this front. So in that respect, I'm kind of okay with the fight not happening. But at the other hand, if he does get this massive payday, which I do think he deserves, and that'd be great, especially after dealing with all the hate he's had to deal with. And man, imagine because I think he could win that fight. I'd just be really bummed if he lost. But imagine if he gets this massive payday, he wins, drops the mic, and is just out. Would that be one of the greatest? That would be the greatest end to a career in the history of mixed martial arts. Would you agree?
Yeah, that definitely, I mean, especially for him being in the GOAT talk for the last 15 years, I mean, that just solidify his spot as the GOAT. And people throw fits about it and get upset, but MMA fans are some of the worst. So it doesn't really matter what they think. Jon Jones is going to collect his payday and, he's going to ride off in the sunset. Actually, he's going to collect his payday and ride off in the sunset, win or lose,
That's true.
Obviously, he doesn't want to lose, and obviously he's going to take it very serious. And if he loses, he's going to be really bummed, but he said that it's not going to affect his legacy. That's especially when he gets that big paycheck. It
shouldn't affect his legacy if people are smart about it. I guess we'll see. But yeah, and I mean, dude, when I went back and watched that fight, I do tend to believe that Jon Jones will pull it off. I think one of the interesting parts about this fight, if it does happen, is that there's not a lot of footage on Tommy Aspinall, and because Jon Jones, his strategy or the way that he wins is such a big part of that is doing film study and really reviewing people. Tommy Aspinall, all his fights have been so brief, so there's not a tremendous amount of footage on him. So I wonder how that's going to impact his ability to prepare. But like when you just even go back and watch the Stipe fight, man, it was just so cool to see the variation of strikes and trips and ground and pound. The way, I think you mentioned or somebody else mentioned, the way he throws elbows on the ground, he uses such rotation in his body that he just generates a tremendous amount of force, even when there's not a lot of room to throw the elbow. You look at the types of kicks he was throwing. I don't see anybody else throwing kicks like that where you described it with that French martial art, I think, where he's pulling his toes back and hitting with the ball of the foot. When you rewatch the fight, you see how much damage those kicks do. You see Stipe wince when he eats them, as opposed to, I think, getting hit with a shin. Obviously, a shin is harder, I think, theoretically, than the ball of the foot, but there's much more surface area. So when you get that little like pressure point of power, it must be really jarring, I imagine. So just watching this amazing fluidity and all these different various strikes that we don't see from other fighters, man, I don't know. It makes me excited. It makes me feel like Jon Jones just has too many tools and weapons for anybody to deal with. It's not about Tommy Aspinall. It's not about Sergey Pavlovich. It's not about anybody in particular. I think just Jon with the multitude of strikes and attacks, plus his just high cerebral nature for the way he fights. I just don't think anybody can beat him or will beat him. People could beat him, but I don't think anybody will. So that's my 2 cents. Justin, I think we lost you, but hopefully you'll be able to come back. I'm assuming he just got a call. Let's move it on to some other combat news. This is not MMA, but this is actually boxing and somewhat in the realm of, well, actually very much in the realm of celebrity boxing. Justin, I think he's back on here. Let me remove this one and bring him back here. All right, here we go. Justin, I just brought up the next topic, Darren Till versus Tommy Fury. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, I have, man. And a little bit on Darren Till, and he's like 250 pounds.
That's what he said.
He looks like Tyson Fury. Yeah, look at him. Look at his physique. He has a big gut hanging over his pants. He looks like Tyson Fury. Not Tommy Fury, but Darren Till looks like Tyson Fury. Like, he looks pathetic. Even if he's 230 pounds, like, he looks terrible. And I think it's going to transition over his fight, and I think he's going to get his ass whooped.
Woo! He's been raging when he had an interview with Ariel Helwani earlier this week, and he's just like, I don't care. I'm not bothered. These people don't get it. I'm from the streets. I don't care. I signed the contract without even looking at how much money I'm making. I don't care. I can't be bothered. And then he's kind of funny. I like the way he's hyping up the fight and promoting. He's going at the Fury family. And then he said, yeah, if the fight's not going my way, or something like, if I feel like it, I'll just straight up head kick you. And he's like, no, you won't head kick me. You're going to abide by the rules of boxing. He's like, who's going to stop me? I love it, actually. So he goes, who's going to stop me? He's like, when you guys walk into a room of boxers, you're like, oh, that guy's pretty good. That guy might be better than me. This guy. He's like, that's not how I feel. When I walk into a room of boxers, nobody is a threat to me. Not one single person could stop me. Not all of you together could stop me. He's like, I'll take down everybody as I want, if I want, when I want. And I'm like, oh, I love that, because it reminds me of the way that Conor was attacking Floyd Mayweather and the boxers back in the day. Like, Darren Till is doing it, and he's doing it the same way, and he's doing a really good job of it. So whatever is going to happen, you think Darren Till is going to get smoked? I mean, it would make, I hate to say it, it would make sense just because he's not a boxer and he's fighting Tommy Fury in boxing. But I love what he's bringing to it, and I don't know. I think I'm gonna get the fight. I think I'm gonna watch it. Are you gonna watch it?
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch it, man. I always gotta support my MMA guys. I'm a big Darren Till fan. I love him on his mic, and love him on the mic, and not to mention his accent makes me laugh. So yeah. I freaking love it. But unfortunately, man, I mean, Darren Till's been on a big slide in his MMA career. He's lost a whole bunch in a row. He's way overweight. He hasn't been training. We all have that mentality that we can, and he would beat the shit out of any boxer in a fight. But this isn't a fight. This is a boxing match. Boxing is a form of fighting, but it's not a fight. And you can disagree with me all you want. A fight is an MMA fight when you can kick, knee, punch, and elbow. That's a fight. Boxing is boxing. They're two different things. It's soccer to American football. It's just totally two different sports, and you can be incredible at one of them and just not good at the other. And unfortunately, Tommy Fury beat Jake Paul, man. And I know that people are like, oh, well, Jake Paul sucks. He doesn't suck, though. That's the thing. Like, yeah. Trust me, I was on the page. I thought Jake Paul, I hated Jake Paul at first. Like, I was trying to come up with ideas and go find where he is and, spit in his face or slap him or something to get. But, dude, this guy can fight, and he's fucking big. Tommy Fury beat Jake Paul. Tommy Fury probably puts away Darren Till within the distance.
Okay, now, let's play a hypothetical here. Let's say Darren Till goes in there, he's losing the fight, and then he does throw like a leg kick or a head kick or a body, something crazy. What are the repercussions? I mean, what would happen to him? I'm sure he would lose his purse. I'm sure something's in the contract about that. But beyond that,
I mean, that is assault. And I mean, that's it. I think that, I mean, there could be legal ramifications to that big time because again, we're in, I mean, if you throw like a head kick and if he knocks Tommy Fury out and he has a bad concussion or breaks his orbital or breaks his nose, like, or breaks anything, this is not what they signed up to do.
Right.
And it's something similar just happened recently, not exactly similar. So this lawyer, he's a referee for a high school wrestling match. Have you see this?
No.
So yeah, like these two high school kids, they're small. They're probably 125 pounds. There's something called in wrestling called potentially dangerous. And what
Okay.
potentially dangerous is, it's like if you and I are wrestling and I have your arm like in an arm bar, and if we get in a weird scramble, I could break your arm. Your arm hasn't broken yet, but there's potential to where it could break. So it's called a potentially dangerous call. So the referee will blow the whistle. He'll put his hand on the back of his head. He'll say potentially dangerous, and you'll reset the position. Well, this guy didn't like the call. He stopped the kid from, mistakenly, and it wasn't intentional. It's not an intentional thing. It's just you end up in weird scrambles in wrestling. He stops the kid from blowing his knee out, stands the bull kid. A parent comes from the bleachers. He sprints onto the mat and just bulldozes the ref and knocks him all the way across the mat on his ass. Well, little did the parent know, little did the ref know, excuse me, little did the parent know that the ref was a criminal lawyer. And he's seeing jail time now, man. That was assault, and I know it's different.
Yeah.
But it's the point of assault,
Mhm.
and if Darren Till goes in there and head kicks him, that's not the rule set, and it means it's an intentional assault too. It's not like he slipped and hit him with an elbow and it's like, oh fuck, I'm sorry. You throw a
Yeah.
head kick and you hurt somebody. That's intentional assault.
Got it. So we can probably say, safe to say, even though Darren Till's saying stuff like this, he would never do that because he could be criminally liable. I'm sure he would never be sanctioned again to fight in a boxing match. Maybe he doesn't care. I don't know. I know Dylan Dennis did try to go for a takedown, and he probably will never be able to box again. But he probably, I assume, didn't care. Anyways, I thought it was an interesting comment. I'm curious to see how this fight goes. Let's see how it all goes down. All right, moving on to topic number 4. Bo Nickal is apparently beefing with Daniel Cormier, and a lot of MMA YouTubers have had quite a bit to say about all of this. So Bo Nickal was apparently upset with the way the commentary team was talking about his performance against, I said his name last night, I called him Craig Jones, Paul Craig, right?
Paul Craig.
Yeah. So he basically felt like the commentary team wasn't giving him his due for performing as well as he did against Paul Craig. And apparently, in particular, getting mad at Daniel Cormier. I mean, did you hear their comments? Did you have anything to say about the commentary's team take on Bo Nickal's performance?
I agreed with the commentary team, man. Bo Nickal was a 1,400 or a minus 1,400 favorite, and I feel he was exposed. His striking is very elementary. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's an incredible grappler, and he's going to grapple fuck 90% of the division. But when you go against somebody like Paul Craig that you don't feel comfortable taking down because he has such a high submission game, I mean, that negates your wrestling right there. Now you have to strike, and when you can't strike, I mean, he can strike, but he can't. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say, like. He's not a high level striker, man. He's still working out. I mean, he gets with Hamza, he's gonna get knocked out.
Yeah, I 100% think so too. I think now he's not going to be talking about Hamzat whatsoever. I don't think he'll ever get to the level of Hamzat, but he's way far away from any level that Hamzat has right now. So I thought that was interesting. A lot of people have been kind of clowning Bo Nickal and saying, why is he so upset? Really, what the commentary team said wasn't even that bad. He just felt like, oh, I did a great job. I went toe to toe with a really highly ranked guy. I kept him at a distance. We had a striking bout. I won every round handily. As a fellow fighter, I mean, was there anything about that performance that impressed you, or were you mostly disappointed?
I was disappointed, man. When you're a 1,400 dog, you need to be getting in there and trying to finish guys in the first, or 1,400, a minus 1,400 favorite. Like, you need to be getting in there and you need to be finishing fights. Like, there's almost no excuse to be that much of a favorite and not even. He never even had Paul Craig in danger. He never rocked him. He never. Fuck, Paul Craig wasn't even bleeding. Like
Yes.
they were basically just playing tag back and forth, touch each other back and forth, and I hated the performance. I thought it was very lackluster. I thought it was boring as hell. Again, when you're a minus 1,400 favorite, you need to be taking it to your guy. This is a gift for you to go in there and smash somebody. Like, I've never been a 1,400 favorite in anything in my life. Like, I can't even imagine. Well, with that being said, he's still new on the scene, and I'm sure, with those kind of, with his wrestling accolades and the expectation, I'm sure there's a lot of pressure, and maybe the pressure got to him, and he just was afraid to pull the trigger because he was so afraid to lose.
Yeah. Somebody said too, perhaps, I think it was Chael Sonnen, who knows what Chael, I don't even know what to trust anything that he says anymore, but he did make the comment. He's like, whoever gave Bo Nickal the advice not to take Paul Craig down, give him bad advice. He should have trusted his wrestling and his grappling. I don't know if you agree or disagree, because sometimes you have to take everything that Chael says with a grain of salt, because I think he just says things sometimes almost for a reaction. But he did say that. I mean, do you think that he should have actually shot for a takedown, or you think that was wise to keep it on the feet to some extent?
I think he should have sealed the deal. I mean, if he was going to take the game plan that he took, I mean, obviously, I know why he didn't take Paul Craig down. Paul Craig's an incredible grappler off his back. He has a bunch of submission finishes, but he could have sealed the deal. I mean, again, I've seen worse decisions go the other way. You know,
Yeah.
where the judges call Paul Craig the winner in that situation. If I was Bo Nickal, or I was his coach, with 30 seconds left, minute left in the round, take him down, seal the deal, just so there's no controversy. Like if Paul Craig somehow snuck out a decision there, which I don't think he did, but I know like the odds going into the third round, Paul Craig went from plus 850 to plus 250, which
wow.
is a huge swing, meaning that he was winning, or Bo Nickal was winning, but not by as much as he should have been. And you know, if I was Bo's coach, I would have told him, man, let's get that takedown at the end of the round to make sure we don't have any bad decisions going our way.
Got you. All right. Before we move on to our final topic, we got a couple comments from Western Mass Climber. He did say, as we were talking about the Conor McGregor situation, yeah, that is true. I forgot Conor McGregor was called out in the octagon last Saturday. Wow, that's crazy. Right before this verdict came out. Western Mass Climber says, Bo, cry more. I think a lot of people are getting on Bo Nickal's case for crying and being upset. Not cry, I shouldn't say cry, but like, you know, being upset from what Daniel Cormier said. I didn't even think what he said was that outlandish. And then he said it was safer to stay on the feet. Can't blame Bo there. All right. Thanks for your feedback. Okay. Last topic. Justin, you talked about this last time. You even blasted Michael Chandler for some of his tactics. Charles Oliveira is now speaking up. So let me show you this quote here that was received by MMA Junkie from Charles Oliveira. So it says right here from Charles Oliveira, you know, I'm not here to criticize, but I want to tell you something. There were a lot of blows to the back of the head, a lot of fence grabbing, Oliveira told MMA Junkie and other reporters through an interpreter. There was also some eye pokes. Yeah, that's crazy. There was an eye poke in first round, and I was telling Peterson what was going on. I kept calling for his attention, and nothing would happen. I hoped that he would intervene, but nothing happened. So I'm not here to criticize, just doing my job. He also said, I think later on in this interview, because I saw a video on it as well, I think he also went on to say later in that interview, he's like, then what would have happened if I would have been knocked out, or what would have happened if I would have lost or gotten injured permanently for the rest of my life when those strikes were happening? He's like, the referees need to intervene when those penalties are happening, and points need to be deducted right away to protect the fighters. Justin, what's your feeling? What's your takeaway? What's your reaction to Charles Oliveira, who I feel like has never really said anything like this before? He's never really come out and lambasted the judges in this way. So he must have felt that those strikes and all the fouls and the penalties were pretty egregious. I mean, what's your first impression?
Charles Oliveira is one of the most respected MMA fighters in the UFC of ever have been. Something that he does that I think is awesome, before, you know, when he gets into the cage, he shakes his opponent's hand, then he shakes all his opponent's coach's hand. I mean, this guy is the epitome of respect when it comes to the UFC. And like you just said, like, he's never come out on a forefront and started blasting a fighter for their cheap shots. You know, Michael Chandler, in my opinion, is the dirtiest fighter in the UFC, regardless if he was my teammate or not. And he's tough as nails, and he whooped my ass in a fight. But I mean, just the consistency of controversy over dirty tactics, eye pokes, punching in the back of the head, grabbing the fence. I mean, it's just it's hard to even want to like Michael Chandler, because it's like, fuck, man. I mean, they always say like it's a kind of a running joke in the gym. Well, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. And I guess to an extent, but when it's that blatant, that often, especially with Charles Oliveira, again, one of the most respected guys, not only in the lightweight division, but in the whole UFC, regardless of he's the champ or not. The guy is the epitome of respect. For him to come out and blast Michael Chandler really says something.
Yeah, it's also too, when you're committing these egregious fouls, like, you can hurt people. It's kind of the same argument for I think when people get upset about steroid use, just from the perspective of when you put on massive amounts of size and strength, because you can literally hurt somebody severely. So anyways, it's just a lot to unpack and take in. Okay, one other compounding factor, which is very interesting, is that Charles Oliveira, did you know he had severe damage to his knee ligaments going into this fight?
I heard something along those lines. Yes, I did
Yeah,
hear that.
isn't that crazy? Give me 1 second. Yeah, so like despite hold on 1 second. So despite everything, despite like all the cheating and the massive injury to his knees, he still came in. He still had the fight, and he still came out victorious. It's just so crazy. But yeah, I don't know. It's quite disappointing. I don't know what's going to happen to Michael Chandler. I assume he's going to be scheduled for another fight after this. I imagine it's not going to severely impact his good standing with the UFC and with Dana White. But yeah, I just wanted to circle back on this because, as you mentioned, Charles Oliveira is extremely respectable. Normally doesn't come out and say things like this, but he said it because of the truth. It is what it is. And I guess we'll see how the world reacts. I know Michael Chandler's been getting a tremendous amount of hate, so maybe it's warranted. It is what it is. That's it, everybody. That's it for today. Those are all our topics. Thank you guys so much for joining once again and staying along with the journey. We grew a lot this week. We're almost at 500 subscribers. So if you guys are listening and haven't subscribed yet, we're at 477. We're trying to get to 500 by the end of the month. It would be amazing if you could give us a subscription, subscribe to us, give us that subscription. Also, if you do like the video, make sure to click that like button. And that is it. Thank you guys so much for joining and for being with us. We had a nice little group of people on the live stream today, so that's super fun for this Friday. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you in the next episode. Take it easy.